Привет всем, с вами я, Janey, и это How Janey Learned Russian. Okay, so we have gone through all of the grammar things that we're going to learn for prepositional case. We are now making our final descent into exam territory. So if we were in my college classroom, we would be writing and performing dialogues. We'd be playing grammar games, speaking games. We used to have this game called Flowmaster, where I'd put a Flowmaster, a marker on the desk, and I'd say out a question in Russian, and the first student to grab the marker has the opportunity to answer the question. And if they don't get it right, the other student can steal it from them. Again, everything to kind of teach you to speak the language under pressure and to just have things become automated in your brain. So, this last section of prepositional unit is going to be dedicated to those kinds of games. I mean, to the extent that I can do it on video. But essentially making you realize, oh, look what I can build with what I've learned so far in this unit. So we're going to be doing that today in various forms. And I think about the next 6 videos are going to be devoted to now putting to use all this grammar that you've learned throughout the unit. So today's topic is A and Q. So not Q and A, not question and answer, but answer and then think of what the question was. Anybody who's studied with me knows I am obsessed with helping you learn how to ask questions in Russian. Why? Why is this so important? Tell me, would this be socially appropriate to hear a person speaking Russian? You want to become friends with them, you want to practice your Russian, and you walk up to them and you say, "Меня зовут John." And then you just stand there and wait for them to start asking you questions, right? Like that's kind of super awkward. But no, rather, you'd want to walk up to them and be like, "О, вы говорите по-русски? Откуда вы?" Right? So you need to lead the conversation with these Russian speakers. You need to have the tools in your toolbox to keep the conversation going so that you can look for and utilize as many opportunities to speak the language as possible. So again, anybody who knows me knows I will really make sure you ask questions because us language learners, we have a tendency to get in a situation where we are just being interrogated. The native asks us a bunch of questions, we practice answering them. That's it. And so the problem is once you get out into the real world, that's not how conversation works. You got to be able to talk back and forth with other human beings. So today I'm going to help you practice really thinking of questions that could be asked, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the answer first. So, all right, here we go. So let me explain this. For those of you who are too young to know what this visual here is on the screen, I like to have at the end of these chapters kind of I call it the moment istiny. So it's the moment of truth. You versus Russian grammar. Who is going to win? This is Rocky Balboa and Ivan Drago in the movie that many of you are probably too young, you've never seen it, but you know, this is a boxing movie and this was like, wow, everybody's so scared of Ivan Drago. He comes out to the Soviet national anthem and like he is a force to be reckoned with. So can you hold your own against prepositional case by the end of this unit? So today we're going to just kind of make that joke and just pretend like we're in the boxing ring against Russian grammar, and hopefully you will come out victorious by the end of this unit. Okay, so what we're going to first do is just a little warm up, a little review. I'm going to just read you a bunch of sentences in English, and you're going to think to yourself, do I even need prepositional case to express this concept in Russian? Okay. So a lot of times when students start learning cases, we're currently talking about prepositional case. So now suddenly they're putting everything in the whole wide world into prepositional case. No, that's not how it works. Depending on what you're trying to say, some things will need prepositional case, some things will need accusative case, some things will be in nominative and they won't change, right? And it's up to you to look at all these things you're trying to say and put them into nice little labeled boxes of like, okay, that's a prepositional case expression. Okay, that preposition gets paired with accusative, etc. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So I'm going to read off these sentences in English, and I'm not going to tell you how to say them in Russian to begin with. It's just you listening to the sentence in English and thinking, do I even need prepositional case? And then I'll tell you how to say the whole thing in Russian. But here we go. So, do we need a prepositional case in the following sentence? Is this your wife? Is this your wife? So hopefully you've been paying attention this chapter and you know that prepositional case is used when we're saying in, on, at, or about. And then in some memorized phrases, I call them anti-Englishisms, right? Anti-Englishisms means English is not going to help you out in this situation. You just got to memorize it, okay? So is this your wife? Does this have any in, on, at, or about? Nope. Nope, it doesn't. And in fact, it does have a this is, which I think we learned about in last chapter. So no prepositional case here. Это ваша жена? Все, nominative case the whole way through. Next one. My parents live in a different state. Do we need any prepositional case here? Yes, I see the word in. And it's talking about a location. Okay. So that would be в другом штате. Мои родители живут в другом штате. Yep, prepositional case. We're saying in, on, at, or about. Вот. Next one. I don't know anything about him. Do we need prepositional case? I see the word about. So sure enough, we sure do. Я ничего не знаю о нем. You double negate in Russian, by the way. Не знаю ничего, ничего, or etc. Next sentence. I'm eating pizza. Do we need prepositional case to say that? Do we see any in, on, at, or about, or any of our just sentences, these questions or phrases we've learned throughout this chapter that you just need prepositional case? No, I don't remember learning anything about eating pizza this chapter. Do you? No. So no prepositional case. Later on, you'll learn that will get accusative case, but don't you worry your pretty little head just yet about that. Okay, next one. What languages do you speak? I just really hope you guys have been paying attention this chapter. I just really hope. I don't see any in, on, at, or about here, but I do see something we have drilled ad nauseum throughout these videos, which is what languages do you speak? It's an anti-Englishism. You just say it that way, and it doesn't make any sense to our English brain. In Russian, you speak on languages. You speak on them. So, на каких языках вы говорите? Okay? Next one. I play the guitar. I don't see any in, on, at, or about, but I do remember a whole bunch of stuff this chapter about на каких музыкальных инструментах вы играете. So I remember something about you play on an instrument in Russian. So that's an anti-Englishism. You just memorize the authentic way to say it in Russian. Okay, look at this one. What year were you born in, right? So you're technically not supposed to end a sentence with a preposition in English, but that rule has long since evaporated. And everybody does it all the time. So this sentence is actually incorrect English, but nobody cares anymore. 300, 400 years ago, you would have had to say, in which city were you born? Oh, yeah. So our bad English makes it so we don't realize that we do, in fact, need prepositional case in this sentence. В каком году вы родились? Вот. So yeah, we do actually need, because there's an implied in here in English, but we've gotten lazy in English and we leave it off now. Next one. I'm at work. Do we need prepositional case for work? You betcha. Вот. Yep. So я на работе. Я на работе. And remember, work is one of those weird nas that we just get a na and you just memorize it and it is the way it is. Okay. How about this one? Russia is a big country. That's very true. Russia is a very big country. Do we need prepositional case to explain that? Is there any on, in, at, or about? Nope. It would just say Россия большая страна. Nominative case the whole way across. Вот. So no prepositional case. Last one. We're walking on Red Square. Okay. So, you guys don't. There is another way of saying this that would get dative case, but don't worry right now. We're looking strictly at that on. And yes, on gets prepositional case. So it would say мы гуляем на Красной площади. So there you go. We needed prepositional case because of that on. Where are you located while you're walking? On Red Square. Okay, so just a real quick thing. Our интересный кусочек информации is box. Да, боксер в России, right? So Ivan Drago is not a real boxer from the movie Rocky, but here are some other ones that are really amazing boxers. So my husband is a third degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he loves UFC, he loves boxing, and he was a big fan of the Soviet Union and Brazil when he was young. He was like, anyway, so my parents knew Buddy Slagutin, they knew him. My dad loved watching him. Again, Americans in the 60s, they were ashamed to admit that they that they were cheering for the Soviets, but my dad did like Buddy Slagutin. And then this guy Klitschko, he's actually Ukrainian. He has a twin brother, and so my husband knew Klitschko. So he was very popular. He was actually married to an American actress. I can't remember her name, Haley something something. And then you've got this guy Nikolai Valuyev, and wow, he looks like he has been beat up in his life, and he's definitely looks like a boxer. And so he's in this movie called Kamennaya Bashka. Bashka in Russian is slang for like a big ol' head, like a head. That's like, it's kind of slang and a little bit offensive. So that movie's called like Stone Head, but like head is not a very nice way to explain it. Anyway, let me know in the comments if you ever had a favorite Soviet boxer or Russian boxer or Ukrainian boxer. Like, who do you really respect? Now, don't get into UFC because that's tomorrow's интересный кусочек информации. So just hold off on that. Okay, so момент истины. We're here in the boxing match. And we're going to really be working on those questions because the questions are how you make friends. Again, nobody wants to be friends with somebody who can't talk with them about stuff and like ask follow-up questions. That's not fun. That's socially awkward. So again, this will really help you get to where you can ask some questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read off one of these answers. And I want you to think, what question was asked to get us to that answer. Okay. Now, for those of you who can see the screen, you'll be able to pause the screen and read through the various questions. So you're going to get the answer a lot faster than people who are just listening. So this is kind of a matching. You're drawing a line across of which question matches with which answer. Anyway, so for those of you who are just listening, I'll read off the answer, make sure you understand what's happening in the answer, and then think, okay, what was the answer, the question that they probably asked, and then try and come up with it in your head, and then see how far off it is from the question that I ask. Okay, here we go. So, ответ. He says, «Я только жил в одном городе». «Я только жил в одном городе». Okay, so по-английски это I only lived in one city. I've only lived in one city. Oh, so if they're saying one city, probably people are asking about lots of different cities, right? So it might be something like в каких городах вы жили? В каких городах вы жили? Я только жил в одном городе, в этом городе всю жизнь живу в этом городе. Вот так. Okay? Next answer. Находится в Афганистане. Находится в Afghanistan. What? Afghanistan? Huh? Okay, so maybe somebody's saying, где Al-Qaeda, right? You can say that. But when you see the list of questions, this makes a lot more sense. It says, в какой стране находится Кабул? Oh, somebody's quizzing you on geography in Russian. Да, Кабул находится в Афганистане. What? But good on you if you came up with a bunch of other questions for which that could be the answer. Молодцы. Okay? Next answer. Я читаю о финансах. Я читаю о финансах. Я читаю о финансах. So why would you tell somebody that you're reading about finances? Maybe they asked you what you're reading about. So how would we phrase that in Russian? Remember, we have to make the word что. We have to put it into prepositional case, and we have to precede it with our preposition. Again, think old fancy English. About what? About what are you reading? О чем ты читаешь? О чем ты читаешь? Вот. Next answer. Мы были в Москве, Казани и Сочи. Мы были в Москве, Казани и Сочи. So for those of you who know Russia, Moskva is a city, Kazan and Sochi are all cities in Russia. Why would you tell somebody that? Sure, maybe they just asked, где вы были? We were trying to find you all this time, and where were you? Or for those of you who can see the list of questions, they know that you've been to Russia, and they say, о, как интересно, где в России вы были? And then you start listing it off. Мы были в Москве, в Казани, в Сочи и так далее. Вот. Окей, очень хорошо. Следующий ответ. Нет, Он на работе. No, he's at work. Он на работе. Why would you need to say, no, he's at work? Somebody's probably asking, is he home? Can I come by and see him? So let's look at the options of questions. Максим дома? Is Maxim home? Максим дома? Нет, он на работе. Вот, очень хорошо. Next answer. Нет, мы были дома. Oh, so no, we were at home. Past tense. What was somebody asking you? They're probably asking you, were you at some place? And you're like, no, we were at home. We sat at home all night, kind of thing. So let's look at the list of questions. Максим дома. Вы были на лекции вчера? Вы были на лекции вчера? Were you at the lecture yesterday? And you're like, нет, мы были дома, which is my college experience. I skipped most of my... Я редко была на лекции. I skipped a lot of my classes. Okay, next one. Я люблю читать о европейской истории. Okay, why would somebody just say, I love reading about European history? Maybe somebody asked you, what do you love reading about? Or maybe they're really specific. They know you like history and they said something like, о какой истории ты любишь читать? Или о чем ты любишь читать? Right? Next one. The answer is говорят по-русски и по-украински и по-польски. Okay, so a bunch of stuff is happening about languages. I bet you it's that famous phrase that needs prepositional case. На каких языках говорят украинцы? Or на каких языках говорят в Украине, например. Вот. Okay, next answer is в Московском государственном университете. Okay, so we're talking about a university here. The question could have been something so simple as где вы учились? Or knowing me, and I was probably trying to challenge you, I was asking in which university did she study? So the question option is в каком университете она училась? Вот, все. And our last answer for which you need to think of possible questions is не очень, лучше играю на гитаре. Okay, so not really, I play the guitar better. So somebody probably just asked them about some sort of instrument. Maybe it was на скрипке. Вы хорошо играете на скрипке. Вы хорошо играете на барабанах. But those of you who see the list of questions, we can see ты хорошо играешь на пианино. And notice pianino doesn't change because it's a borrowed Italian word. Russian doesn't know what to do with borrowed words that end in o, u, e. So they're just like, forget it, don't decline it. If it ends in a consonant or an a, Russian usually declines it. But for those kind of weird ones ending in o or sushi, taxi, they don't decline because it just doesn't fit the whole Russian system. So, хорошо. So those were the questions that we had, and if I were you, I'd go back through. If I'd like you to listen to this and at least watch the screen so you can see how it all matches up. Just a reminder, this is all available in my textbook. I have lots of fun exercises in the textbook that I love doing physically with my hand, like old school, the way we used to do it in the good old days. And then also I have group classes available, and oh, you better believe I make my students ask each other questions, and we play volleyball. We keep that ball up in the air. We keep the conversation going for as long as we possibly can. And sure enough, the students who have been studying with just a native tutor, they're very deer in headlights when I'm like, all right, ask everybody some questions. Bless their hearts. They can answer a bunch of questions, but they do not know how to ask questions because they've never challenged them. They've never put the responsibility on themselves to keep the conversation going. So that is, if you come study with me, you better bet that you're going to be able to even like conduct a class by the end of it and call on different students and ask them questions. And yeah, you're going to be quite the social butterfly in Russian by the end of a group class with me. All that information is down in the description box below. Это все на сегодня. Увидимся завтра на следующем уроке. Пока-пока.